And I would normally agree with that. I think that the speaking section is very difficult, but not because the questions are difficult or the topics to discuss are difficult. I would say that the most meaningful characteristic that makes the speaking section very much troublesome is the very, very much short time you'll have for responding the questions in this part of the exam. Okay, it's very, very much short, trust me. But anyways, with an adequate understanding of this and of course practice, it's not difficult to attain a very good score in the speaking section. Okay, so let us start them and discuss the speaking section together with some general aspects before. Okay, let's go. Well, so the TOEFL IBT speaking section is designed to measure your ability to speak English effectively in academic settings. Now, this is composed of 4 different tasks, by the way, that resemble real-life situations you might encounter both in and outside of a classroom. You have 2 types of questions to respond, by the way. And this is interesting. In the speaking section, you have 4 questions to respond, but just 2 types of questions. Think about it for a while. 4 questions to respond, 4 tasks, but 2 types of questions, okay? The first type of question is called an independent speaking task or question, okay? By task, I simply mean question. It's not something to complicate you with. It's just question, okay? Task is an equivalent to question. Now, the first type of question, as I say, is named independent question. And this is because it requires you to draw entirely, okay? To relate entirely on your own ideas, opinions, and experiences when you respond, okay? This is the type of question we're going to be discussing throughout the entire week, because if you look at the message or the invitation to this reunion that was sent to the WhatsApp group, Speaking Section 1 is the title of this reunion. And it's because during the entire week, we're going to concentrate our efforts and, of course, our minds to this first type of question. That very much, I would say, advantageously, is the question number 1 we'll have to respond. Because, as you can see, from questions 2 to questions 4, okay, question 2, question 3, and question 4, all of those questions are part of the integrated speaking tasks, okay, or integrated questions. All of these questions, the second, the third, and the fourth one, pertain and belong to the second type of question that, as I say, is called integrated speaking question, okay? And this is because they require to combine your English language skills, just as you would in and out of a classroom, but not relying on yourself anymore to respond, but relying on the material that ETS presents to you to respond to this question. It's not necessary for us to discuss this in detail and depth right now, because as I mentioned, it's not something that we're going to discuss during this week. Next week, when we start with the question 2 and 3, we're going to start, of course, analyzing and immersing ourselves into this second type of question, okay? But for now, our main topic and center of attention will be the first question that, as I say, is the only one that belongs to this first type of question that is called independent question, okay? Well, fantastic. And as I say, this is called independent because you are going to be the main character in that response. You're going to respond with everything of your own. In this first type of question, as you're going to be able to notice throughout this week, you are the one who responds to this question, offering whatever you want and, of course, are able to provide in their response. It's about what you can offer to this response. It's about what you can offer to the question. It's not about what others give you to respond about, but what you can offer to the question, okay? You're gonna notice this, don't worry. And the third thing I want to discuss in these general aspects is that throughout the entire section, you will be required to write down some notes in order to organize and plan your responses. Likewise, since the second independent task, you will take notes about the listening items you will receive. As I told you beforehand, during the entire exam, you're able to take your sheets of paper that ETS provides you with if you are taking the IBT version, right? in which you have to go to a test center in order to, sorry, take the exam. If you're planning to take that modality, that version of the exam, the IVT version, in which you go, as I say, to a test center to take the exam, fantastic, because as I told you, everything you need, the test center is going to provide you with sheets of paper, pencils, and erasers. So they give you that at the beginning of the exam, and you can take that to write down your notes and whatever you want during the entire exam at every single point, okay? So in this part of the exam, you trust me, is going to be of tremendous importance to take your notes, okay? And I think it's fantastic that with you, we have already analyzed the listening section in which we discussed very important techniques and some general concepts on how to take efficient notes, okay? So everything we have learned last week, please apply it. Apply it to this section, especially when you see yourself confronted with the necessity to take notes, all right? So that is very important for you to know right now, okay? Great. Is there any question with regard to these general aspects of the speaking section, something that I could clarify maybe on this part? Guys, any question?
Excuse me, teacher, are you sharing the screen? Because I can't see it.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. Actually, nobody told me that. I wasn't. I just
Sorry,
realized.
teacher, I think it was my internet, but okay, no problem.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
boring anyways. No, my pleasure. Thank you very much for telling me. So yeah, actually I was sharing my screen, but well, I mean I wasn't, but I was looking at it. Well, anyways, I basically read this because it's just, as I say, theory, right? And that's something very much important to see. But yeah, I mean, like, look at this. It's just the speaking section, the general aspects that I was commenting on right now, and these very general notions you have to know before we move on to more important topics. Okay, but is there something that I could clarify with regard to this that you were not looking at before? Any question on this? Okay, great. No questions, I think. So what else? Let us continue, all right? Well, I have some recommendations and counselings, let's say, for you to nail the speaking section. And I want to talk about them right now, okay? Before we move on to the important part of the speaking section, that is, of course, the questions and tasks themselves, okay? But before we move on to that place, and of course, we start discussing how to respond to those questions, I think there are some general recommendations that I can share with you out of my experience that I think are very much important to tackle even before responding to questions, okay? So let us start with this. Now, for this section, dear students, your best allies, all right, are going to be the headphones you are going to have, you're going to have. I told you as well that if you're taking the IVT version and you go to a test center, they are going to provide you with all the devices and equipments you need to take the exam. The computer, keyboard, headphones, microphone you need. So if you're taking that modality, okay, you don't have to worry about this. They are going to give you the headphones. Nonetheless, if you're taking the home IVT version, you are going to be the one who must get those devices and headphones by yourself, okay, in order to meet the requirements for taking the home IVT version. Now look at this. These are the type of headphones that you are going to receive if you go for the IVT version. As I say, when you go to a test center, doesn't matter where you live, independently on where you live, you're going to receive this type of headphones, okay? As you can see, very generic ones. You get a microphone on one side, and this is the type of headphone you're going to get. Now, if you're taking the home IVT version, when you are taking this exam at home, you are required to have a pair of headphones, and the microphone, in your case, for the home IVT version test takers, must be one of these desktop microphones, the ones that have a surface and you can, as I say, put them on your desk stable, right? And you speak like this, right, with the microphone there. You must get one of that type of microphones. Now, as I said, the requirements for the home IVT version constantly change, okay? So it's never, let's say, plausible to me to describe to you what a specific type of device you must get. So my best recommendation for those of you who are planning to take the home IoT version is to constantly go to the ETS website that I have shared in the WhatsApp group, or you can look for on the internet, and check by yourself what the requirements are they asking for. If you want to take the home IoT version, they have the list there. They made the upgrades, as I say, very much constantly. So you go there and you can check it out, and you can see if you can get any other type of microphone as well, etc. But for those of you who are going to go for the IoT version, this is going to be the one that you're going to receive. A headphone, as you can see, with a microphone attached on one side. Okay, fantastic. So first thing to make sure, dear students, when beginning this section, okay, when you begin this section, is to put them on correctly, to put these headphones correctly, and to get the microphone near your mouth with the due space for you to speak. Now, a very much common mistake that some test takers do is to put this microphone, or excuse me, put these headphones on, and they take the microphone and they tend to separate it very much from their mouth, and that is not adequate. Remember that the speaking section is one of the only few parts during the exam in which your responses are not going to be evaluated by artificial intelligence. The responses you offer in this part of the exam, in the speaking section, 4 responses overall, right? Because as we said, we have to respond 4 questions, are going to be evaluated and punctuated by a professional on this area, a human being, okay, a person. So this microphone is a device that helps you to record the responses you offer. And certainly, you don't want the reviewer to have any trouble when listening to you, when listening to your recordings. So something you can do in order to avoid any type of complication like that one is to, as I say, place this microphone nearby your mouth with the due space to speak, of course, 3 to 5 centimeters, so that you can offer the greatest quality in your recording. And trust me, the reviewer is going to thank you very much for that, and you're actually helping yourself to have a very adequate punctuation and score. Because imagine that you have a fantastic speaking, you respond fluently with a fantastic response, offering great vocabulary, but because you didn't take your precautions and your microphone was super separated and over here and you didn't record well, the reviewer just doesn't understand you, and of course you're not going to be well evaluated. So first thing to make sure, put these headphones correctly and get the microphone near your mouth, obviously having the capacity to speak, always checking out the detail, but as near as you can to your mouth, okay? It's very important. Fantastic. Second thing, the headphones will additionally be adaptable to your head size, okay? So make sure to adjust them in a manner proper for you to have them near your mouth, but firm on your head. This is actually a very important detail. As you can see here, in the superior part of this device, you have some sort of mechanism that allows you to adjust the size of this particular equipment. So what you want to do is to put them on, but to adjust the size of these headphones so that they are very much steady and firm on your head. You don't want to have them very loose, because some people tend to have them very loosely, maybe because they do not want to have pressure on their heads, and they don't want to feel something very high on their heads, and they always leave them very loosely. But that is something you actually want to prevent and avoid. Why? Very simple reason. Imagine that at some point, I don't know, something, I don't know, bothers you or annoys you here behind your ear, and you scratch. And because you are scratching your ear, you take or you touch your headphone, and because it's very loosely attached to your head, is of course going to move, is of course going to even fall down if you are not very much careful. So you want to avoid that type of complication, certainly. You want to give yourself comfort when responding and security. So my best recommendation, please have them very firm on your head, even if that is a little bit uncomfortable to you, because you are not very much, I don't know, happy and comfortable when you have something tied on your head. In this case, it is necessary for you to have them tied, because as I say, any type of sudden movement, I don't know, with your head like this or something, could shaken this particular device. And if you shake this device, of course, it's going to move, it's going to fall down, and that is going to perturbate your response. Okay, so please avoid that type of issue by having it firm on your head. All right, adjusting, as I say, the headphone with this mechanism that contains on the superior part of the equipment. All right, very important. Now, third recommendation. Dear students, as we continue with the pandemic, it is very plausible, okay, that that the test centers, if you're taking the IBT version, of course, are still going to require you to wear a mask, even for this section. Remember that when the pandemic started in 2020, ETS started to request all test takers to wear masks during the entire exam. And by the way, that also includes the speaking section. So yeah, as you can see, you'll have to have your mask on during the speaking section as well, even if it is annoying and I don't know, bothersome to you. So, and this is going to continue, I would say, even for one more year, because the pandemic is continuing around the world. You have new, I don't know, new advances and new variants and stuff like that. So people are still very much frightened because of the pandemic. And ETS, of course, is going to take its precautions. They are going to still require masks during this exam, etc. And for the speaking section is not, by the way, the exception. They also request you to have the mask on. Okay, so the recommendation here, oh, by the way, if you're taking the home IBT version, certainly this is not something you worry about, because if you're taking the home IBT version, taking the exam at home, they do not request you to wear a mask, obviously, for very simple reasons. You are at your own space, your own family, maybe your own room. So of course, who cares if you have a mask on or not? And that is another advantage of the home IBT version, actually, that you are not requested to wear the mask during your exam. Very much, I don't know, comfortable for other people, releasing for other people. Some people just get very much, I don't know, annoyed and they get very much perturbed by having the mask on. So they tend to go for the home IBT version because they have this burden out of themselves. So if you're like that, of course, maybe it's a consideration you should take when deciding what modality to choose and performing on the exam, okay? But if you're in the IBT version group, make sure that the mask you wear on that day is comfortable for you to move your mouth and speak, okay? Let me show you and talk to you about my experience. I was part of the first generation of test takers who took the exam wearing masks, for the obvious reason that I took it first in 2020. Therefore, I was part of the first people who took it, as I say, wearing the masks. So the first time I took the exam, I remember that I went to the test center with one of these masks, very common ones. At least where I live, I've seen that these are the favorites of people. People wear this type of mask, the clinical ones. And well, for some people, it's great. It's very comfortable. They enjoy having them on, etc., because they say are super loose, etc. In my personal experience, I didn't enjoy this type of mask during the exam because I felt that they were too attached to my mouth. And when I was speaking, I felt the mask touching my lips, and that was way deconcentrated. Trust me, it was very annoying. So, of course, I didn't have a very much comfortable experience. It wasn't the greatest experience I've ever had. So next time I took the exam, 1 year later, I decided to go for another type of mask. I went for other type. I wear this type of mask. I think it's F32 mask, if I'm not wrong. No, it's, I'm not sure if it is F6 mask. No, not really. Well, what a weird thing. It's just like F mask, like for COVID. Right over here. Yeah, it's more like this type of mask. That, like this one, exactly. It's like this type of mask. Like, as you can see, this type of mask contains some sort of space, right? From your lips and to the top of the mask. I wore this type of mask the second time I took the exam, and I had a way better experience. At least personally, I found that the space this mask presents you from your lips onto the top of the mask was very, very much releasing. As I say, it was very, very much soothing. I had a way better experience because I had the chance to move my mouth very comfortably and nothing touched my lips. So I felt very much normal when speaking. And it was a huge relief to me personally. Now I know that this is a matter of preference. Some people do not like this type of masks. They have their reasons. And other people simply prefer the other ones, the clinical ones. So this is a matter of complete preference and personal comfort. My best recommendation would be try to get a pair of headphones like this one, or I don't know if you know somebody who I don't know who possesses this type of headphone, go lend it for a while and borrow it, excuse me, for a while, and use it. Wear your mask and try to speak for a very much prolonged time. And by doing so, you're going to be able to see if when you speak using this type of headphone, you feel comfortable with the mask. All right. And choose, as I say, try to look for your comfort, try to look for what suits you better. It's not the same for everyone. As I say, in my case, the second type of mask was way more comfortable, suitable to me, but it could be the case that it's not to you. So best thing to do, try to get one of these ones, borrow it if you know somebody who gets this type of headphone, and use different types of mask and try to find the one that suits you better for speaking. Okay, because sometimes, of course, some masks are more comfortable for using them in our daily activities, but we normally take them off when we want to speak with other people, right? So try to use them, but speaking for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, and see how you feel. Try to perceive how you feel when speaking, okay? And that way, you're gonna find your comfort and your own preference, all right? It's very important to do so. So remember, think about that. Great. And last recommendation here in this group of things. Fourth, you are not going to be allowed to have a water bottle with you in your test room. So make sure to drink enough water and to hydrate, your throat appropriately. Now, this is very important. I think it's a very good time for us to remember that the speaking section is this part of the exam that comes immediately after the 10-minute break. You remember that when we discuss all the parts of this exam, all the sections, we said that the first sections you have to perform on are the reading section and the listening section, and you take them on a road. That is to say, you take the reading section, and then after that, immediately you take the listening section. And both of them, as you take it in a row, last for 2.5 hours or something. So after you finalize these two sections, the reading and the listening, you get the 10 minutes break. And this is the only part during the exam, as we have discussed, in which you can do something else apart from performing on the exam. You can go out to drink water, you can go to the bathroom, you can eat something if you feel anxious, you can, I don't know, consult your notes if you want, your structures, whatever. You can go and breathe, whatever. You can do whatever you want during these 10 minutes, okay? So when you come back from those 10 minutes break, the speaking section is the first part of the exam you have to confront once again. So as I said, it's the reading, the listening, the 10 minutes break, and the speaking section when you come back from those 10 minutes. So as I say, is during the 10 minutes you have for break when you can do something else than performing on the exam. When you come back from that, and when you are in the reading and the listening section, you cannot do anything else than performing on the exam. You cannot drink water, you cannot eat, you cannot speak, of course, unless you're in the speaking section, you cannot do anything. So something very important is that as you're going to be speaking, of course, in the speaking section, responding, you need to have your throat well hydrated, because if you do not do so, what's going to happen? You're going to feel dryness in your throat, and you're not going to be able to speak very much clearly and comfortably. And trust me that even if you beg your reviewer or the test center staff members for you to go and drink water or to get you a cup of water or something, they are not going to give it to you, because rules apply to everyone just the same. Nobody during the reading listening section or the speaking and writing section is allowed to do anything else than performing on the exam. Just during the 10 minutes break, you can drink water, eat something, consult your notes, whatever. But after that or before that, you cannot do anything else than performing. So very important thing to do, to always make sure to have your throat well hydrated, to eat something if you need it. I don't know, to do whatever, but the point is that you cannot do anything else later on. Okay, so great. That is what I wanted to comment on. That you need to have your throat well hydrated. Is there any question, dear students, about the recommendation I have just delivered? Is there anything that I could clarify here? Please tell me. Questions? Questions?
It was clear, teacher.
Okay, thank you very much, Grisel. Great, thank you very much, guys. So let's continue then. Fantastic. So if there are no questions about this, let us jump into a very important thing, okay? Well, I told you this, I remember beforehand, that one of the reasons why people are fearful of the IBT version is because they find this part of the exam to be very difficult when they are requested to speak at the same time than the other test takers in the computation room. I told you that when you take the IBT version, you are not going to be the only test taker within that computation room. More test takers are going to take the exam with you, 12, 10 people, etc. So normally, as I told you, and I chose that word on purpose actually, normally, you're going to have to speak at the same time than these people, because normally, once again, people take the exam at the same time. That is to say, everybody speaks at the same time, etc., etc. But there is a manner to partially avoid that problem, okay? And notice, partially. Of course, not completely, but partially avoid that trouble. And I want to share that particular hack with you so that you don't have to see yourself confronted with that very, very much troublesome and difficult experience of having to speak at the same time than the other test takers, okay? Let me show you something that I have discovered out of my experience that could help you to avoid that trouble partially, okay? So look at this. As the speaking section will be the part of the exam, the section you have just after your 10 minutes break, try to be the last person to get into the room and the last person to start the section. Now let us discuss this in depth. I told you that when the listening section finalizes, you end performing on the listening section, there's going to be a message on your screen, on your computer, that will say something like, now you can go to your 10 minutes break. Please get out of the room. So you have to get out, okay? And everybody gets out at the same time. Like you are going to get out at the same time that the person on your right, on your left, in front of you, behind you, etc. Everybody gets out, okay, at the same time for this 10 minutes break when the listening section is finalized. Now, when people go out, people do different things. Some people go and go directly to the bathroom. Other people go and eat something because they are very nervous. Other people drink water. Other people go and consult their notes because, as I told you, you are not allowed to enter within the computation room with anything else than your knowledge, right? You cannot enter with your school bag, your notebook, nothing. If you bring something with you that day, you have to leave it in care of somebody who works for ETS that will be out of the room, taking care of your things, your school bag, your notebook. I remember actually that the second time I took the exam, a friend of mine was taking care of my things because she worked for ETS. And it was great, at least, to have her, taking care of my things. So yeah, so the thing is that you can go and consult your notes if you want, etc. People do different things, but there is something very much general on everybody. There is something that everybody normally does. What is that? People do not normally take the entire 10 minutes. People do not use the entire 10 minutes they have as a break. They normally use half of it, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, even 6 minutes, and they come back to the computation room, even when they have 4 extra minutes for having a break, because as I say, everybody gets 10 minutes. Now, it depends on you how much time of those 10 minutes you want to use. As I say, you can be there, go to the bathroom in 2 minutes, and if you want, you can come back to the computation room and start with the speaking section immediately. And as I say, I have discovered this in my experience, and I have confirmed it with so many people that normally test takers tend to go out. They remain there for half of the time, 5 minutes approximately, and they come back. They, I don't know, they get bored, or I've never explained this very much for research, and let's say, why people do not want to use the entire 10 minutes. I guess it's because they are anxious, and that's it. That they say, well, I want to finalize this once and for all, but they come back. They do not use the entire 10 minutes. You're gonna notice this as well, okay? Trust me, in your exam. So what happens? Let's use an illustration. Let's say Juan. Juan is the generic test taker, okay? Juan is a person who does what everybody else does. So Juan sees the message on his screen that says, go to your 10 minutes break. And well, he stands up, he goes out of the room, he goes to the bathroom, he drinks a little bit of water, he washes his face. And then when he gets out of the bathroom, he says, well, what am I gonna do here? So he comes back. When he continued to have 7 minutes to be out there enjoying his break. But he doesn't want to. He comes back to the computation room. He sits down, as I say, having used merely 3 minutes of his 10 minutes for break. He comes back, he sits down, and he starts his speaking section. That is Juan. And Juan would and as I say, Juan represents what people would normally do. People normally do this, okay? But the thing here is that you shouldn't be like Juan. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be part of that very generic group of test takers. You shouldn't do that. Why? Because notice, Juan entered the computation room having merely used 3 minutes of his break, which means that when you come back as the last person to enter the computation room once again, having used your entire 10 minutes, because Juan entered before you and Juan started the speaking section way before you, when Juan is in his 4th question, because remember, there are just 4 questions in the speaking section and everything is super fast. When Juan is in his 4th question, you're gonna be in the 1st one, which means that when you are in the 2nd question, Juan is gonna be totally shut up. And the rest of the people who, as I say, do exactly the same than Juan are also going to be shut up. Why? For the very simple reason that they are going to enter the computation room before you, way before you, and they will immediately start with the speaking section. They are going to advance, respond. So when you enter, people are normally going to be in the 3rd question or in the 4th question, which means that when you are, for example, in the 2nd question, you are going to be the only person speaking in the computation room. And what is that gonna give you? Silence. And I know that, of course, you would appreciate silence when you are speaking and you're trying to concentrate in your speech, right? So as I say, this helps you to partially avoid the problem. Be the last person who enters the room, use the entireness of your 10 minutes break. And when somebody from ETS tells you, hey, come back, your 10 minutes are over, at that point you come back. But before that, you never come back. You are the last person, as I say, to enter the computation room. And trust me, nobody else is going to do it. And if somebody else does it, well, at least the only person you're going to have to listen while responding is that person who did exactly the same as you. But not, let's say, the 12 people who enter the computation room at the same time, and the 10 of them basically harm each other because they are speaking at the same time, etc., etc. And that, of course, perturbates you, okay, and perturbates each other. So you're going to avoid that partially by doing this. And there is actually something else, okay, apart from this. As I told you, Juan, our generic test taker, who does what everybody else does, goes back to the computation room, having used 3 minutes of his break. He sits down, and what Juan sees on his screen is a message that says, in order to continue with the speaking section, press the button start or continue. So Juan reads that, okay, and he says, all right, well, I'm gonna start. What else, right? I mean, here, verify just start, and he presses the button. And then the speaking section starts, and he starts responding, and goes on, etc. But Juan and people normally do not know, they are not aware that when you come back from the 10 minutes break and you sit down in your computer, you are not required to immediately start the speaking section. As I say, there is a message on your screen that tells you in order to start the speaking section, because if you do not press the button, it doesn't start. In order to start the speaking section, press the button continue. If you don't press it, the speaking section is not going to start and your computer is going to be freezed just where it is. And now you say, okay, what do I do? My recommendation is when you come back, having used your 10 minutes break and you sit down, don't press the continue button. Wait until the computer takes you to the speaking section because you have not pressed the button. Because as I say, you get like 2 minutes approximately. There is no special or specific data with regard to how much time ETS gives each test taker for starting the speaking section. But my calculations are like 2 minutes or 2 minutes and a half. If you don't press the button in those 2 minutes and a half, the computer itself is going to take you to the speaking section without penalty, by the way. It doesn't give you a penalty or something for not having pressed the button. Actually, if you think about it, there is a reason why they have put the button in the first place. And it's because they do not want to force their test takers to start with the speaking section immediately like that, right, from the scratch. They want them to sit down, to relax a little bit, to stretch out, to mentally prepare themselves, etc. So that's the reason why they put that button there, continue. And if you don't press it, as I say, the computer will freeze where it is, and you will not start the speaking section. And as I say, this is totally legal. So you don't press it, and you stay there for those 2 minutes. Doing what? Maybe you're wondering. Listening to what other people say. Why? Because we need to discuss this, dear students. The questions, the 4 questions you're going to receive in the speaking section are going to be the exact same questions that everybody in your room is going to receive. The person who is on your right side, on your left, behind you, in front of you, all of them are going to receive the exact same questions. So when you sit down, apart from taking more time to start the speaking section, so that, for example, when you sit down, somebody is in the, let's say Juan, once again, Juan is in the 3rd question, and you sit down there and you don't start the speaking section for 2 minutes approximately. So Juan, when Juan is in the 4th question, you are going to start with the speaking section, and you're basically not going to have to listen to Juan, because when you start the speaking section, Juan is going to be in the 4th question, and you're not going to listen to him anymore because he's going to move on to the writing section. Okay? So when you come back, sit down, don't press the continue button, and start listening to what other people say. And you can actually use that in your favor. Why? Last time I took the exam, I took it with friends of mine. Well, friends and let's say colleagues, because I received a scholarship from the American Embassy that was called Opportunity Funds. And what this scholarship basically does is that the embassy pays for you to take the TOEFL exam, pays for you to apply to American universities, etc. The point is that I was not the only scholar. There were 2 other guys, 3 other guys actually selected for this scholarship. So we practiced together, we met, we knew each other, we talked to each other before taking the exam, etc. So when we were in the speaking section, when we were in our break, actually, they didn't know any of this, of course, right? They didn't know anything of what I'm telling you. And they come back to the computation room after 5 minutes approximately. So I was the last person, the last scholar to enter the computation room. And when I sat down, I didn't start the speaking section. As I say, I sat down and I waited because I knew that the speaking section wouldn't start if I didn't press the button. And I started to listen to what other people were saying. And as I tell you, I had the chance to recognize my scholar partners' voices because I knew them and I had met them previously. So I started to listen to one of my fellow scholars, and sorry, and I remember him very well because he had talked to me about his last vacation to LA, California. And I remember that he talked to me about that before the exam. We talked about it because I also traveled to the US in 2019. So we talked about our experience because he went to California and I was in Washington. They are very much neighbor states. And yeah, we talked about it. And I listened that when he was responding to the question, he was talking about that trip. He was talking about his trip to California, to LA. So I thought, well, as all the questions are the same, and I listened to this person. Of course, he was great at speaking English, right? He was a scholar from the American Embassy for some reason, right? I listened to him responding to the question. And I said, okay, if he's talking about his trip to LA, what could this question be about? So I started to think, okay, I took my paper because as I told you, they give you paper, right? And pencils to take your notes. And I started to think on my mind and to write down what types of questions could I receive? And I started to think, okay, the question must be about vacations. Why would he talk about his vacation if that weren't the case? So I started to think, okay, the question could be like, do you prefer vacations alone or with friends? Or the question could be, you prefer to go to foreign countries for having vacations or to stay in your own country? So I started to think about responses and questions on my mind. And I wrote them on my notes. And maybe you're wondering, is this legal? And yeah, totally legal. It's just that people don't realize these things. But it's just playing very much cleverly within ETS rules. And as I say, being very much savvy. But I listened to him. And you know what? When I started the speaking section, because the computer took me to the speaking section, the question was just what I imagined. The question was about vacations. I don't remember the specific question because it was 1 year ago, but it was about vacations. So because I had thought about the response already, and I had thought about possible responses I would give to those questions, I responded that question very easily. Okay, so notice, the only thing is that I play ETS rules, but cleverly. And because I did so, I got an advantage, I used them, and I performed very well. If you're clever as well, you can use these techniques, these hacks that I've learned, and you can apply them, okay? As I say, this could help you to partially avoid that problem, and this could help you to actually respond better to the questions, okay? If you listen well, and you're very much apprehensive and very much concentrated, you can do this, okay? Any question with regard to this hack, dear students, something that I could clarify here, concerns about this? Daniela, Grisel, Danilo, questions?
No, teacher.
Okay, thank you very much. What about the rest of you guys? Questions about this?
It was clear, teacher, and very
Okay.
interesting.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. And Danilo also says all clear. Great. So, well, that's it with regard to, as I said, some very interesting tips and hacks I can share with you without even tackling the speaking section yet, right? So the last thing we're going to do together before finalizing our class tonight is to discuss the general aspects of the first task of the speaking section that, as I say, is going to be our topic of concentration during this week, okay? So, as I told you, the first question is called independent question. It's the only question that belongs to this type of question, independent tasks, okay? It's the first question every single time, the one that is going to be independent, as I say, and you have to respond this using your own data, knowledge, experiences, and opinion. Now, in your first task, you will be required to say your opinion on a general topic, and you will have to defend and sustain it. You will have little time to finish the task, which breaks down to the following: a preparation of 15 seconds and a response of 4 or 5 seconds. As you can see here, and I told you this beforehand, the difficult thing is the time. 15 seconds of preparation 45 seconds of response. Okay, great. Let us continue. So what's the thing here? The thing is, this type of question is very simple, actually. We're going to discuss and we're going to illustrate this tomorrow. But the thing is that ETS gives you a topic, a theme, and it's a very much general and trivial topic. It could be, some people believe that cats are the best pets, and other people believe that dogs are the best pets. Which opinion do you have? So your response, you will have to offer your opinion on that theme or topic. You would say, personally, I prefer cats. Okay. Now, but apart from giving your opinion, the next thing you have to do is to defend your opinion. And that's the reason why I brought this picture here tonight. Probably some of you know this character, very famous in today's political spectrum, Ben Shapiro. I didn't bring him to discuss politics or something, of course. The only reason is because he is very much famous for being a good debater. Okay, people recognize that about him. He's a good debater, a very tenacious debater. So what I want you to remember when you are in this task is that you are debating somehow. You know what a debate is, right? A debate is a platform in which you discuss ideas and defend your idea against an opponent, right? That has a contrary opinion to you. For example, people believe that the earth is round and other people believe that the earth is plane. So people will have a debate and argue and offer arguments and reasons, etc. So when you are in this question, I want you to think and to embody yourself as if you were debating. Because as I say, you don't merely have to offer your opinion and say, I prefer cats. And that's it. No, you also have to defend your position. You have to explain in these 45 seconds why you have that position, why you have that opinion. You have to offer arguments, illustrations, and motives, as we're going to discuss tomorrow, to sustain, to defend your opinion and position. Okay? So always remember, please, in this question, you are a debater. You are using arguments to defend your position. You're using illustrations to defend your position, as we are going to learn tomorrow, okay? But it's never about just giving your opinion, and that's it. It's also about defending it, saying why you have that particular opinion, okay? So that your reviewer evaluates your response with regard to your opinion, but especially for how you defend your opinion, okay? Very important. As I said, we're going to discuss the rest of this tomorrow in our simulator, but the basic thing is that you have to understand you have to read a topic, and then to respond in 4 or 5 seconds. By the way, tomorrow I'm going to show you a template. This is a template for how to respond, okay? The question, so please don't worry about that. It's just a very simple thing. We're going to practice. I actually have here some examples that I recorded of my own, so you can understand this through some illustrations, and I have some recommendations, okay? But all of this, we're going to see it tomorrow. But for now, please have this on mind, that in this case, you have your opinion, you have to give it. So whatever you can come out with, any idea you have, any opinion you have, any experience you can talk about, this is the part for you to describe it and to express it. During other parts of the exams, I have deliberately told you, do not say what you think, right? But in this part of the exam, speaking section task number 1, you can say whatever you want. You have no limits, no boundaries, apart from, of course, talking about the subject they give you, the topic they give you. That always changes, of course. But then your opinion can be whatever you want. Your arguments, whatever you want. Your illustrations, whatever you want. You can offer your knowledge, your data, your experiences. Here is your time. You are the main character here. It's about what you can offer to the response, okay? In the other questions, when we discuss this in the subsequent weeks, the second, the third, and the fourth question, I'm going to tell you, no opinions, know what you think. But for now, in the first question, you can say whatever you want. Express your opinion, express your ideas, speak up, okay? This is the part for doing so. Great. Any question with regard to this, dear students, to this general notion of the speaking section task number 1? Great, I think that you don't. Well, as I said, we're going to finalize here tonight. Tomorrow, we're going to finalize our discussion of this, and then we're going to practice. And the rest of the days, we're going to practice, because this is one of those parts, when I told you, it's more about practice. So we're going to practice on Thursday, on Friday, the entire class, okay? So it's just going to listen to you and you're going to have the chance to practice and practice and practice, okay? So great. Before you go, let me please take your assistance. And as I do so, please help me with your kind responses, okay, to this traditional poll. And if you have any question, any commentary, please, you're very much welcome, okay? All right. Listen to your names. All right. So, is here present Grisel Paz?
Yes, teacher, present.
Thank you very much, dear Grisel. What about Daniela Lourdes?
Here, teacher.
Thank you very much, dear Daniela. And we finally have Danilo Torrico.
Here, Carlos.
Thank you very much, dear Danilo. Great, there we are. Well, thank you very much, guys, for your kind responses, for your assistance tonight. I'm gonna be seeing you tomorrow then to finalize the speaking section, at least the discussion of our first question, and then we're going to practice together, okay? Have a wonderful night, and I see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Bye, teacher. You too, teacher. See you
Bye-bye,
tomorrow.
thank you very much. See you, bye-bye, thank you.